Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Planet Coaster. Today we will be working on finishing up the right side and the right plaza of Air Temple Island. Now, we're going to be starting off with these wooden posts that are very much like balancing kind of training areas for the air acolytes to practice their balance, airbending on, and also I believe it is a little reminiscent of the airball type of training areas that they might have had on the older previous temples where Aang kind of grew up hanging around. And this was of course one of his more favorite things to do when he was young. So I did add the posts originally. Turned out that I didn't really like them that much. The objective of the game though is basically very much like, I guess you could say almost like Quidditch. You have to take a ball using airbending, take it across the post and balance, and throw it through the ringed hoop at the end. Of course, you have goalies and things like that. But eventually I add more posts just to fill in some more of the area and get rid of the goals on either end, just because it just looked a little out of place compared to everything else. There also wasn't any really good reference imagery to support that's what it was used for beyond just balance training. So for now, we're just going to leave it like that. So currently, we are doing some terrain sculpting because this episode we want to kind of finish establishing the proportions on the right side so that we can move on to the left side rather cleanly and nicely here. We're going to be working on some of the actual mountainside itself. We're going to get these nice long tendril-like elements that you find in very steep mountainsides. You get these effects of I guess you could say mountains, if you were to draw them, paint them, sculpt them, what you're going to find is they are kind of these ripples that go along, and you find spines, and those spines then have side things, almost like tree trunks, and they kind of branch off as they go down. But what's actually going to go up here on this plateau is the White Lotus. Kind of, you could almost say it's an emissary in a sense. The White Lotus are the people that train the Avatar, and especially when they're younger, when they kind of can't defend themselves quite as well. And they also teach the Avatar in different bending ways, like earth bending, fire bending, and they just help him discover, or her discover, the potential that they do have, since the Avatar is the only one that can use all the elements at the same time. We also get to use our wonderful roof tiles some more here. And I still haven't saved a corner piece, an inside corner piece or an exterior corner piece. It's kind of an oversight on my part. We really need to get that done eventually, especially since the left side is full of even more detailed structures than we have so far. The right side, I actually wanted to do it first, one, to establish our theming, which I think we've done a decent job so far of doing, but also because it's actually the less detailed side. A lot more open plazas, a lot more just general open space and smooth walls going up. If you look at the temple, you get to see a lot of just plain surfaces. The left side is a little bit more of the living side of the temple. That's where Tenzin actually lives himself and his family, beyond just the dorms. I think the men's dorm is also on the left side. There's more meditation, there's just more exterior buildings, probably a little bit more official offices and things over there as well. It's not really fully explained as to what all those buildings are, but we'll get to them over the next few episodes. This plaza itself, very reminiscent of what we have made previously. This is a nice kind of octagon type structure here. It is a little bit too big compared to maybe my reference material, but a lot of the references, the scale of this thing changes between almost every shot, and it can make it a little annoying when you're trying to recreate something if it's just constantly changing on you. At some points, the plaza and the kind of outbuilding here are more towards the edge, and a smaller plaza and a bigger building, or a bigger plaza and a smaller building that's more closely aligned to the main plaza itself. So, you just kind of have to mix, match, choose, and go with what looks right the best. We're also going to put a little bit more of a railing along here. We're using a lighter concrete just to make it look a little bit different than everywhere else. You want to try and get some different colors in your builds so that you can quickly identify areas without having to go into detail. From a distance you can see, the low plaza that just sits and has the training kind of sparring area, and then that turns into a little bit of a lighter color as you go up into the dorm area, and then you get the sandstone like colors as you go into some more of the training equipment. It just kind of segments out all of these areas to make them look a little bit more unique and stand on their own. Now, train sculpting is not something I am well practiced in. Planet Coaster's train tools are a little interesting. They're very flexible, but also they do have a learning curve, and I'm not that great at cutting these steep mountainsides that you'll see at these tall kind of plateauing islands like this. And as I said, what you want to do is try and make it look a little bit like a tree trunk. You're going to have your main spires, and I'm using a lot of the chisel tool to get these. I'm using a lot of flatten to surface tool because the flatten to surface tool kind of can bend its way around actual items, and that's giving us our nice chiseled look as a base. And we'll eventually add some rocks in there just to give them some more depth as you go upwards and near the bottom. You don't want to overuse the rock assets itself because, one, they are parts. That does increase the overall part count of the build, but also it can look just a little too busy. It's fine to have heavy detailed areas, a little bit of a break, kind of a smoother area, and then some more detail. And it just gives your eyes a place to rest, you could say. Now, this is the staircase up to the white Lotus area, and it is just a nice straight staircase with a slight bend near the top that goes all the way around. This ramp looks different in many of the reference images as well, between just a straight short ramp to a nice continual curved ramp. And it's one of those things of, everyone has their own interpretation. Everyone kind of does it all however they imagine this place to look like a lot of the time. So that's what you kind of have to do yourself when even if you're recreating a build from a show or a movie. There's always going to be a little bit of artistic liberty, which I think is fine. It allows you to kind of stretch your imagination and make the build a little bit your own without saying you made 100% of a copy, because 100% copying something is decently useful to learn some basics, but it's not something that you want to do continually. Sometimes you do, and you should go ahead and make something yourself. Now, more train sculpting. We have some interesting slopes on this initial side here. A lot of the greenery is going to go down at that point, and this main plateau itself is going to rise up, and it's just practicing with these tools. And I think I am slowly getting the hang of them so that I can do these small cuts and ravines and make the overall shape look pretty natural, though there are some, room for improvements. Also, this actually wasn't in any imagery that I saw. However, for people who know the series, you're going to recognize this symbol. This is actually the White Lotus symbol. And I wanted to do something very similar to what we did with the Yin Yang sign down there in the main plaza. And actually go ahead and try and make this. And when you're doing shape art in Planet Coaster, there's just steps that you have to try and follow so that it actually layers correctly. And so we're going to start with this black disc, which is going to provide the outer ring of the black color here. And you can see filling in an initial white ring and layering another black ring on top of that so that we can get some, layering of colors and hopefully a good look overall. And then at this point, you can go in with the final bit of white, copy this around. These are actually kind of the inner workings of the main symbol itself, and there you have it. You have a nice layered object. You want to try and squish this down as thin as possible, because the thinner it is, the less Z-fighting you're going to get. And also, you need just a little bit of a gap, between each little layer. And if you keep doing that and adding layers, the overall thickness does get pretty insane after a while. So you do want to watch that when you are making kind of these thinner decorative pieces for pathing. Now, luckily for us, I don't have to worry about people's feet clipping through here. There's no actual walkable path for guests. This is more of a recreation thing. But once this thing is done and uploaded to the Steam Workshop, you guys are, of course, free to add rides, add paths throughout the whole thing, coasters if you even want to, or just use it to get inspired and make your own kind of Asian theme like we're doing here. And there's a lot of stuff to learn from looking at other people's stuff. There's a lot of stuff to learn copying other people's things, and also just watching videos, trying your best. And if you keep trying, I'm sure you guys will be able to build just as good as anyone else. We all start, somewhere, and that starting point is basically zero in most, if not all cases. Some layers of talent comes in there, but I'm not a huge believer in talent. So, a lot of it's just hard work and practice, repetition, until you just kind of are able to pull this stuff out of thin air. So we're going to do a lot of rock work here just to the left of the staircase. A lot of the rock work that's very similar to what is near the staircase at the main temple. So we get these spires pulling upwards. We're also leaving some plain areas, just using the textures, and that's going to create some flatter, interesting breaks that we can produce in between here. Going to mix in some different colors, some greens, some light yellows, and then some actual shrubbery to bring in a whole nother element and depth through here. And you don't want everything to be a lush forest. You don't want everything to be just rocks in a field. You want hybrids, you want mixtures, you want borders to form, you want variety in your landscaping, and I think this offers a whole bunch of it. Now, of course, you're going to get some very thick areas of foliage here along the right side. Eventually we'll make a little bit of a sheer cliff face, and we'll be able to finish off the right side of the actual island shape itself, and then we can say that this area is then complete. I'm just kind of waiting, because these trees and things, that's going to slow down the speed of the simulation and my FPS. So that's something I want to watch out for. We are adding a whole bunch of detail in here, and unless you have a really good computer, not everyone's going to be able to go to this level. And we still have, I don't even think we're halfway done. We're halfway done in terms of area, but in terms of detailing, not even close. There's a lot of trees, a lot of forests, a lot of rocks, a lot of sculpting left to do. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at this in real time. You guys can give me some feedback, and we'll go from there. And hopefully you guys have learned and watched this and with some excitement. So here we go. Alright, so here we are at the kind of White Lotus Plaza attachment that is here to the front right of the temple. And it is, well, in one word, plain. It's very actually an empty area. Not many times, I don't even think they come here once in the show. I could be wrong about that. But it is not really an overly used area. There's no details in many of the imagery. It's really just this outbuilding up here on this plaza. I did add the symbol just for kind of an extra detail here, and the nice railing that we established earlier. but I feel like it might be missing something. And what I wanted to do is get your feedback here, guys, just initially. I can add things to this, just on my own, if you want me to. Now, I don't know if I should, just because this is supposed to be a little bit more of a recreation. But if you guys want, I could, I guess in theory, make another small building out here, maybe, or possibly some arches or something, just to make it look a little bit more interesting itself, because right now it's a little plain. A lot of this episode in time was mainly used for sculpting, laying out all these trees and rocks, manually placing all of this stuff, and getting it to look overall impressive. It's one of those things where, you know, you can spend hours and hours just placing trees in this game, and then you just have a bunch of trees to look at, and the actual plaza might be a little overshadowed, and that might be something we look into fixing based on your guys' feedback. If you want maybe arches here, or some more details on the staircase, something to break that up a little bit, we can make maybe a little gazebo-like structure here in this corner. Can even do some pathing trim, very similar to down here. In fact, I think I'm going to do that anyways, just to kind of bring that all the way up and around. But overall, this does technically finish off the right side. If I were to actually zoom out here to about yay, this looks fairly accurate to a lot of the images that I have seen of Air Temple Island. I'm quite happy with how everything is turning out. There's a few details, you know, depending on what things you're looking at, that are here or not here, but the overall plaza shape is there. The overall detailing. I know in the Korra video game, you fight the triad in the kind of training area here, but you approach on the kind of in the middle of it, to be honest. But that, and there's this giant pathway you go through to get there. That's not really shown anywhere in any of like the actual outside the game sources. So I don't know what they were doing when they created that path. But as of right now, this is kind of what we got. I do like how tall and steep our hillside is becoming. Down here, it will eventually kind of slope out a little bit. We'll get a little bit of water down here as well. Some more island as we go to the right a little bit more. But overall, just the steepness of this and adding some rocks near the tops, letting the texture run down here. And you can add texture to this if we really wanted to. Like, for example, we can add some more just rock texture in places, and that'll help break up these giant surfaces of just plain gray. And if you work with the texture tools well enough, you don't need a lot of 3D assets on there. But other than that, you know, the nice wooden posts here, you can see the thicker, more dense version than the speed build section. And you can see just as the sun is, I think it's setting here, as yeah, it's about 2:30 p.m. It's a little too low in the sky if you think about it. But it's just a very nice area to be, and very, very peaceful. Especially with you can hear the leaves blowing and the birds chirping. So I think that's where we're going to leave this episode off today. I'm excited to hear what you guys think about the Upper Plaza and what we might need to add to it. I do need to eventually build some custom little assets to put around the plazas, like, you know, lanterns, lights. But I find those minor details to be kind of a second thought to the main structures that we've been working on. So, if you guys enjoy Planet Coaster, feel free to subscribe to my channel. Go ahead and check out my other videos if you haven't done so already. Leave a comment down below, and I will see you all in the next, I guess, episode, yeah.